Hello and welcome to Lynchburg Live. I'm your host, Linda Smith. The Lynchburg area abounds with talented people. Among them are the authors who make up Hill City Writers. My guests tonight, Marie Colligan and Charmaine T. Davis, are published authors and members of Hill City Writers. They'll be telling us how the group assists each other, both published authors and authors that have works in progress. Before we get started, I would like to welcome the people who are in our new viewing area. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Lynchburg Live.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we get started, could you just tell us what Hill City Writers is? Is it a club, or either one of you can answer these questions?
Well, it's not a club.
Okay.
We don't have officers. We're just a group of writers who wanted to get together, and we support each other, we help each other. We stand on each other's shoulders, so to speak. And people who want to write just come, and it's like a magnet.
Yes, it is.
So you have regular members, though, but anybody is welcome?
Oh, anybody is welcome, yes.
That's
yes,
wonderful.
Yes.
Now, where do you meet?
We meet at the Fairview Center on Campbell Avenue, and Monday and Tuesday. Monday mornings at 9 to 11, and Tuesdays 7 to 9.
Do you have sponsors who sponsor Hill City Writers?
Sadly, no.
How did the group get started? It's an interesting group. I've recently joined in January, and I have enjoyed being there. So how did you get started?
The story, do you know a better story than I do? I know it was started by Dawn Dottle, who is a literary agent here in Lynchburg, and she wanted to represent writers here in the area first, before she really launched. And so she was having, she started the club, well, I don't want to say club, but critique group or the writers group. And it was before I even joined. She was meeting at Barnes & Noble until it got too loud, to hear people read their stories. And so it's moved several different places and to where we are now at Fairview Center.
Now, did you all know each other before you got involved with Hill City Writers?
No, not at all. We were strangers. When I came, Charmaine was already a member.
Yes.
So I don't know how long after you joined that I came. I don't know. but we became friends just because of the group.
Yes.
And you do, Marie, run the Monday morning
Yeah, I
session,
facilitate the Monday morning group, yes.
And it's 2 hours?
Yes.
All right. Now, are you both originally from Lynchburg?
Linda, can't you tell by my accent that I'm not?
That's why I asked this question. I thought maybe you'd like to tell me where you're from that's not Lynchburg.
Well, when I first stepped into the writers group, the first thing they said, well, she's not from here.
I think that was me.
Was it? Actually, I was born and raised in Jersey City, New Jersey. And when I got married, we moved out of Jersey City. And when we retired, we found a very lovely home in Lynchburg, and we've been here for 17 years.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And how about you, Charmaine?
We've been here for 18 years. Actually, my husband came here when he was 4 or 6 years old with his parents, and I lived in the Hurt Alta Vista area. And I remember thinking when I said, I'm going to live in Lynchburg when I grew up. I just thought Lynchburg was the thing, the city. Even though I've gone to college in Florida, and we also lived in Martinsville for a while, but we've been here in Lynchburg for about 17 years, and I really enjoy living here.
All right. I want to talk to both of you all and find out a little bit about each of you before we get into more on the Hill City Writers. Now, Marie, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. As I said, I'm a Jersey girl.
Okay.
And I took my first writing course at Uppsala College, which I attended in the satellite branch in northern New Jersey. And it was there that I found out I was a writer. My very wonderful writing professor, who was well known, she was a poet and very well known, and hung out with the likes of Allen Ginsberg and Ferlinghetti and that group. she made me the word nerd that I am. I'm not a poet, but she was so particular about getting the right word and using the right word, and that really comes to help me today. And I would suggest to any writers, if you can take a poetry course, take one. And after that, I had 3 women's articles published in nonfiction magazines, women magazines. And then I didn't write, and that was in the 80s, and then I didn't write for years because I had a child, and it was Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts and baseball, and it was hard. And then I went to college, so then I had to go to work to put her through college. And I didn't start writing again until I picked up one of the Parks and Recreation activity guides and saw this little blurb that Charmaine already mentioned, that Dawn Dawdle was running this critique group. And so I said, oh, that's for me. And so I went, and I liked it, and I joined it, and I started writing again, and that was in 2009, I believe. And in 2012, I had my first book published.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
So things have worked out very well in that respect. I'm married. I've been married for 46 years, have a son, and 2 rascal dachshunds.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
How about you, Charmaine?
I have 7 children, and I've been
7 children?
Yes, ages from 20 to 6.
You don't look old enough to have
Well, thank you.
7 children.
Yes, and our oldest son is in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. He is going to be in the Army.
My goodness.
He's going through basic combat training. And I've been married for 21 years to Mark Davis. And as soon as I learned how to read and I got into the Nancy Drew franchise, I decided I can do this. I want to write like this, and I want to give people the same fun experience that, I enjoy, while I read Nancy Drew. And so I wrote a lot, during school, all the assignments and all that stuff. And I found writing to be very easy. And some of the kids in my class, they go, wow, you got an A on that. I mean, they just thought I was magic. And I'm like, this just came so easy to me. And just like Marie, you go off to college and you get married and you have children. And so then I just started writing a lot of lists. And my husband just laughs at me because I love notebooks. I love paper. I just love just making all kinds of lists and schedules. And I homeschooled my kids for 5 years.
Great.
And so I was always writing out, curriculum plans and all this kind of stuff. But then I would always go, oh, this will make a good book, or this will be a good story, this is a great idea. And one day my husband just said, can you just stop talking about writing and just write?
Right.
And I was like, oh. And he said, because first of all, I started out with a screenplay. And if you know anything about screenplays, it's very stiff competition to even get your stuff read in Hollywood. And so I thought, I really want to be read, and the screenplay business is a little hard, even though the screenplay I wrote was called The Tract, and my husband, he just loved it. He even cried, after he read the screenplay. And so I decided, at that point, I was at the Hill City Writers Group, and I decided, I'm going to try my hand at a novel, because, I can be able to get a readership easier than just writing a screenplay and submitting it to Hollywood. And so he said, why don't you write about something, like, your crazy stories about growing up, and so that's how I ended up writing The Red House, almost a memoir, because it's full of half-truths and lies and wish fulfillment and fantasy, told from a 10-year-old girl's point of view. So I had a lot of fun writing that, and I'd be typing and laughing, and Mark is like, what is going on over there? And I was like, this is just too funny. And so it's a fun read.
It's important that you enjoy what you do.
Yes.
And I think most of us who do write enjoy doing that. All right, now I want you to tell our audience how difficult it is to get anything published.
Well, I think there's 2 answers to that. It's very easy if you want to pay thousands of dollars and go to a vanity press and have them publish your book, but that's really not the way to get published. I always counsel the people in our group, don't spend money to get published. I would suggest going to conferences, writers' conferences. That's how I found my publisher. I was supposed to meet with an agent at this conference, and for some reason the agent did not show up, and I was paired with this publisher instead. And as I was pitching my book to the publisher, she started to write on a little business card, and I was really getting annoyed, and I thought, why isn't she paying attention to what I'm saying. I only have 10 minutes to pitch this book. And when I was finished blabbering, she gave me her card and she said, this is my personal email address. I don't want a query, I don't want a synopsis, I want the entire manuscript. And that's where this came in.
Sometimes you just have to be in the right place at the right time.
Yes, and you have to be brave enough to take the step.
Right.
I mean, I was very frightened about pitching my book. It was the first time I had ever done that, and I kept saying to myself, I'll just treat it like an exercise. It'll be practice. It'll be my practice run. Well, my practice run turned into a lovely book. And I would suggest to everybody who is trying to write to go to those conferences. Some of them are very expensive, but you will find some are very reasonable. In fact, this coming on March 19th, 19th through 23rd, Charlottesville has a free week practically of free writing seminars.
That's
we
wonderful.
Generally go up to the one on Saturday at the Omni Hotel, and they have all kinds of speakers and seminars and a whole day full of stuff, free. And it's a great place to get your feet wet.
What about you?
With me, I tried going the traditional route because there are several ways to be published. And I just got kind of discouraged by, people saying, well, this book is a coming-of-age book, and that's not really selling right now, or, and just the long process of trying to research agents and see who would be the best fit for my book. And so Mark was like, why don't you just choose yourself, And I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to choose myself. So what I call myself is an authorpreneur, and actually what I do is I opened up my own publishing house, and it's called Salt Cedar Publications, and I publish my own books and also published my husband's book that he wrote. And so I'm just having a lot of fun being my
That's
own
great.
writer and my own publisher. And it really didn't, the only thing I had to pay for were for the book covers. And my husband is an editor. He has professional experience in that, so he edited my book, so I was able to save money that way. And then the rest was just up to me learning how to format the books correctly, because if you publish through Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Kobo, it's really no charge. I mean, you get 70% royalty to 35% depending on how much, it's based on how much you price the book for. So if you just want to be brave and just go out there in the waters, I mean, this is a great time to be a writer, to be an author, publish your books, choose yourself and get yourself out there, because there are a lot of, we started calling ourselves indie publishers, where people are making big money now, like Hugh Howey, Amanda Hawking is a big one, H.M. Ward. I mean, it's all across all genres. These people are just making it happen if you run it like a small business, and also keep your expectations down. It takes a while to gain a readership,
Right.
and just don't get discouraged and just keep going at it.
It's one of the sad things is that so many talented people really don't get a chance, because there's so many, it's such a competitive market,
Yes,
really it
true.
is.
It
And,
is.
That's true.
So what would you would suggest that hopeful authors join these writers groups and that sort of thing, because it's helpful?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
How many people do we have in the Hill City Writers?
Well, the Monday group varies anywhere from 5 to 8 people, and the Tuesday night group varies anywhere from 5 to 15 people, and they're all ages, and they are writing across all genres.
Right.
Fortunately, we have some students who even come in from the local colleges.
That's
and
fantastic.
They are so talented that it just amazes me what they put out. And then we have some people who are writing memoirs or doing a nonfiction work. Most of us are fiction writers. We have some poets. So we have a whole selection. And I would just, invite anybody who wants to come and take our pulse and sit in on it, and see what we're all about. Come, and you may find that it's a good fit for you.
Can you tell our audience about what happens at the meetings?
Well, I can say one thing, Marie, she'll put you to work, which is great. And she comes in, like sometimes she'll come in with like 4 objects, and you pick one to just write a flash fiction.
That's a wonderful
Yeah, I'd love
exercise.
it. I mean, that we get to actually write and then read the thing. Because one thing too, I think beginning writers shouldn't be intimidated
Right.
by a novel. They really should start small, you know, with the flash fiction, which is just really short fiction from anywhere from 100 to 1,000 words, a novella, or just get used to doing writing short stories, because you get to have the satisfaction of beginning something and able to finish it.
Right.
That is a key thing that we used to do at the beginning of the group, is that we would do writing prompts, and we have a whole week to write it, and then we'll present it before the group and read it, and everybody would clap and stuff without critiquing it, you know, and that helped you become bolder and
Confident.
more
Yes.
confident.
Yes.
You know, just people encouraging you in your writing. And then with our other stuff, then, you know, if you say, hey, critique this hard, or, you know, really, and we'll do that, you know, and so it really helps you grow, and also grow that thick skin, you know,
Right.
because you really need
You
that as
need
a
that.
writer.
Oh,
You do.
yes.
I mean,
Yes.
Oh, yes.
If you're going to write something, you cannot not have a thick skin if you're going to have an editor.
That's right.
You know, because you have to relinquish something to that editor and say, this person, this is what they do, this is their talent, and they're here to help me, and not get offended
That's
if
right.
they
That's right.
say
That's
something
right.
you don't like to hear. So I've noticed that all the members of Hill City Writers, everybody seems to bring a specific talent to the group, and I
Yes.
think that's what makes the group successful. How does everybody interact with each other as far as critiquing and
Well,
editing, really?
you know, it's a real critique. We edit as we go along. If we see a mistake, a typo, or something that's awkward, or some construction that just doesn't make any sense, you know, we'll circle it and talk about it after it's all completely read. So you get an editing,
Yeah, and it
a
goes-
free editing.
And it can go beyond that too, like consistency, or
Yeah,
if
yeah.
Something is technically wrong. You know, like I remember somebody had written something, and Marie, you know, her past. In the past, she was an artist, and she was able to say, you know, that's not the right kind. I can't remember exactly
I
what it was,
remember
but
the
something
incident.
about
I remember,
reflection
yeah,
or something.
yeah.
And you know, and not even just Marie, but other people who
That's
have
right.
jobs. You know, and
Well,
and
for
they'll go-
instance, Mike Roach, he is a photographer, and I had one scene where there was some sculpture on an altarpiece, and I didn't have the shadowing right when I described it, and he said, no, this is what it would look like, you know, if it was shadowing, and so I was able to use his expertise to get it right. And it's important to get it right, because there's going to be somebody out there in
Right.
the world who knows you got it
Exactly.
wrong. As a matter of fact, in one of my books that I'm writing now, there's a little tidbit about a very valuable book, and it's called Peter Pan in Kensington Garden. And I had to research this book, and in it I found out what made this so rare was that it had some missing tissue paper between the pages. And would you believe it? One of the kids from one of the colleges knew that was right. Sitting there. I mean, who knew that? I didn't know that, but
It's
he
like
knew
you
it,
said,
know.
somebody will
There's
know.
going to be somebody
Exactly.
who knows that you got it wrong. So make sure you get it right.
All right, on March 8th, there was something very exciting happened at the library and with Hill City Writers. Will you all tell us about that?
Well, that was kind of Marie's baby.
Was it Marie's baby?
You know, I was in agreement. I came along.
Well, my assistant. Well, you know, Charmaine and I had been, you know, talking about this, and we said, you know, the artists have their big day in September at the high school
Right.
grounds, and there's always band competitions and musical productions. What is going on for authors? Nothing. So we decided we would try this one-day blowout event, and we did it in conjunction with the library. They were very gracious about that, and they are letting us keep our books on display in the middle of the library for the entire month of March.
That's wonderful.
And so people can see, hey, these are local writers. I know Marie Colligan. You know? And so that's how that came about. Charmaine and I went and sat with the library director, the head of the library, and she was very gracious in letting us have the use of the community room and set up, and they were just wonderful.
Yes.
How many authors were there?
There were 12 authors there, and some of them, have been published, and there was just 2 criteria you had to meet. You either had to be a Lynchburg resident, or you had to be a member of the Hill City Writers, not necessarily a Lynchburg resident if you were a Hill City Writer member. So those were the two criteria that you had to reach in order to participate. And in fact, after the event, I have already 2 people who have called me to say they missed it, they didn't know about it, and are we having it next year?
Wonderful.
So
Do you think we'll do it again next year?
We will see.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it really was such a success.
It was.
And to have the public have an opportunity to come in and meet the authors, and the authors have an opportunity to talk about their books, and
Yes.
did readings aloud.
Yes.
You know, I thought it was such a good event. And you all have brought some pictures, and Phil, if you'll put the pictures up on the screen, we'll talk about what they are. This is one of the authors that was at...
Yeah, it was Judge Johnston.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
He actually married my husband and me 21
Oh,
years
did
ago.
he? I know what this is. This is the refreshment
That
table
was-
at,
that
at
was very
Lynchburg
popular.
Rights.
Yes.
Very popular table.
Yeah, this was setting up the event.
And
That's
this is-
Bonnie Davis.
Bonnie, yes.
And she's local.
Yes,
Yes,
and she
oh,
writes
yes.
romance. And that's me, Charmaine, and Mark, and Ben, and his wife Elaine.
Right.
And
I
they're actually our neighbors. I met him at Liberty University's conference, writers' conference, which they don't have anymore. And it was funny because I never met him before, even though he lived in my neighborhood. And so I invited him to the Hill City Writers group, and he's been going for quite a while now.
And he writes some great things. We're pushing him to get published.
Yes.
That's just a panoramic view my husband took of as the public was starting to come in and go to each table. Thought that was cool.
There's Alicia McHugh, and she wrote Daughter of the Promise, and she's busy writing the sequel to it. It's Dave Grix.
Yeah.
He wrote Brother Frank. I guess that's when he's reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put this picture of myself in here
Yes.
reading aloud because Billy didn't get a picture of anybody else reading aloud, so that's me reading aloud.
We'll allow it.
Who's that?
I have no idea.
There's Marie.
And Charmaine's daughter took that picture of her,
that's
and this
funny.
is Sharon.
Sharon,
Yeah,
yes.
Sharon Alberts. And she's such a good encourager and supporter. And I can't wait for her to finish her book.
Yes. And there's a case of somebody who just waited and kept taking notes, and now finally she feels confident enough to write.
Yes. There's Ben. He's a member of the Hill City Writers, and his wife.
David Thomason.
Yes, and he actually did our Lynchburg Writes flyer. So he's one of the graphic artists, and that's
And
me.
there you are.
I guess my daughter took that picture.
Peeking around the corner.
I probably told her put that camera down.
Believe it or not, we've only got 5 more minutes.
Oh, wow.
So as Phil shows these pictures, and you can keep showing the pictures, Phil, and I'll just try to ask you these last several questions. I told you it went fast.
Yes, okay.
All right. Have we been to any events like this, like Lynchburg Writes, before this, or is this the first time?
No, this is the first time, although Charmaine and I have done a few things in the community together that border on that. We were asked as paid panelists about 2 years ago, I guess
Yes.
it was, when Campbell County ran a writers' conference, and we were invited to Liberty University to do a seminar for their writing club, and then we were
twice.
invited back for a command performance, you know,
yes.
and then I was doing some meet the author kind of stuff, and I did some 2 seminars for the neighborhood
good.
house, not the neighborhood house, the Parks and Recreation for their after-school program. So we do things like that.
I mean, I think that's certainly to your credit to do that and pass on your talent and what you
have
know
to.
and
You have
what you've
to.
learned.
You have to.
What advice would you give to an aspiring author about visibility and how to market themselves, I guess, is really...
That is something you constantly learn, and you have to learn to just greet people and be nice and learn about them, and just like you meet a friend. A reader is a friend first, before they become your reader, and it really is something that you have to keep at. You know, you just
Right.
can't just coast, and also learn how to do social media too.
Yeah. Right now, there is, do you have a website? Hill City Writers has a website or a Facebook page?
We did, but they took it down. What was it, a blog? It was a
Yes.
blog, because the writers didn't have time
Oh.
To keep it up.
But you do currently have the Facebook page.
Personally.
No, I think there's Hill City.
Do we have a?
I thought Mike Roach was running that, but I haven't
Oh,
seen anything.
I don't know. I
But we
don't
have
know.
It's
personal
up.
websites.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but-
yeah.
It's,
yeah.
all right, so if somebody were interested in joining, coming to, what do they have to do? Just show up at one
Show
of
up.
your meetings? Okay. All right, you want to tell us one more time where each of the meetings are, what time?
Well, the Monday morning meeting, which I facilitate, is at the Fairview Neighborhood Center on the corner of Campbell Avenue and Ford Street, right opposite the Citgo service station. And that's Mondays from 9 to 11,
And Tuesday nights
and
from...
Tuesday
7
nights
to 9.
from
7
7
to
to
9,
9 in the same exact space. I do not facilitate that. Someone else does. Jennifer Balicki facilitates that one.
I thank you both for coming and being a part of
Thank
this show
you.
and telling Lynchburg about Lynchburg Writes and the Hill City Writers. I think that it's good to know that we have such talented people in this town. And thank you so much.
We do.
Thank
And thank you for inviting us.
Yes.
I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. My next show will feature the Lynchburg Humane Society. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening. If you have anything that you would, any comments, any suggestions for future shows, you can reach us at lynchburglivenow@aol.com. Good night.